All right, good morning, gentlemen. Bob here, prepared to break down some Bitcoin once again this morning. Getting right to it. Really, and we'll just start out on daily today. Today, actually, we'll keep this brief because I think that, as far as a few things I see here, got a pretty good sense, at least at the moment, what I'm looking for here. So let's just get right down to this. So we've talked about all this stuff on these charts for days and days and weeks now. So keeping it real simple, here's what we've got at the moment, and this has kind of been the interesting part about trying to trade in this bear market is understanding what continues to happen on an hourly basis, day to day, whatever the case may be. But this general concept keeps happening a lot, where you've got these bullish divergences that are pretty much immediately met with bearish divergence. So it's constantly this up, down, up, down. Obviously on the daily we saw several straight days of downside, but it's this constant, kind of washing machine, if you will, like where it's just up, down, up, down. I mean, even this little pattern we've got forming right here on the RSI, you can see here, I mean, if I draw a line across the top of here and then the bottom of here, you can already see where this line looks like it's probably going to get stopped out here relatively soon, frankly, right? I mean, assuming that if I drew a line here that it would hold up, that this is already prepared to max out its move potentially for the day, right? In order for this not to end up I guess let's put it this way: if it ended the day there, the price right here, and this stayed the same, then it might not be a bearish divergence. Maybe we would actually get a second day, maybe another small green candle that would come up into this region. And then, it's a matter of, can it break through this trend line? Well, then the big thing would be that the RSI would then have to continue upwards. But if this doesn't exceed this level here, then that's going to lead to a bearish divergence. So, it's just this constant, up, down. And anyway, it's just been very interesting to watch it. But I think, so, we've been talking about looking for, either double bottom or a slightly lower low. If we're going to get that slightly lower low at this point, looks as though that might take a few days to play out. Just kind of assessing what I see here. I mean, this could very well be another little downside parabola forming. I've had a handful of different ideas that I've put on my chart. I mean, this is actually looking like a rounded top in and of itself, at least to a large extent. When you get these kind of flagging looking patterns, you do tend to get 3 downside pushes. So this would have been one downside push number 2 right here, and then a downside push number 3 potentially right here, which again, same concept, suggests that this would roll over one more time. It's just, honestly, looking at it, it's just tough to say. I've been looking ideally for a good reversal pattern. This would be a solid one, but you can see here, I mean, this looked like it started into a reversal that just rolled over. So again, all these things are still going to be possible, right? Just gotta sit here and say, double bottom, this looks like it could blah blah, do this, that. Doesn't mean that it's just go time, right? Like we still got to get to a point where we can say, yep, it's go time. Like that we've got a consistent push in one direction long enough to actually, not make hour-long trades every day and everything. So, all right, so let's go ahead and zoom in on the action here a little bit, and I'm not even gonna bother with the other chart today. It's I started to clean it a little this morning, but it's still a mess. Long story short, this is what I got going here. So on the other chart, I've got this rounded top that has been playing out right up until this point. You can see, if I took a rounding approach and I put it around here, like this is the part that's essentially looking like it wants to break out of there. In addition, it's this small inverted head and shoulder pattern. Those are good reversal patterns. It's only an hourly pattern, so it's not as if this thing is going to alter the course of our it's not going to totally alter the course of where we're heading in general, but it is going to give us some relief. What I'm thinking here is that we've got one of two things in play. Now this inverted head and shoulders, what I'm going to be looking for here in the next 5-ish minutes. Does it finish above this level? It looks like it's going to. And then if it does, in the following hour or in the following minutes or whatever the case may be, does it then hold this level? If that happens, so my assumption is that we'll probably need to give it a solid hour. It may very well just pop up here while we're talking. Even don't be surprised if it does. It might just pop up here. But what I'm really looking for here is one of a few things. This is so we had ridden this trend line out for a couple days there, a full week basically, until we lost it right here, which just yesterday. We lost that trend line. When you lose an uptrend, there are a couple different ways that things can happen, and normally, and granted, I honestly I was prepping to be short right here, and then all of a sudden I figured we were going to lose this line because I'd missed this initial push here, but I honestly looked at this and said, oh well, it's going to cascade down to here, potentially at least, or down into these ranges, and then all of a sudden you get this kind of reversal here, double bottom, and I was talking to Matt at the time yesterday, and then all of a sudden it rolls over, which I was waiting on, and then this 28.8 level is just held up incredibly well, and to an extent I don't even understand it, but that's beside the point. It's held up very well. So, well, and again we've talked about why it did. That's where the wick came back last May. We'll keep in mind, by the way, today is 1 year from the day that this market absolutely crushed a lot of people. Major margin calls, liquidations, May 19th last year. So I think, maybe to an extent there's some trepidation in the market in general about it. But, this is a reversal pattern, assuming that it doesn't end up being an inverse head and shoulders. It should pump, measured move here, takes it probably to right about here. So it probably does just put in a bearish retest. At least as of now, it looks as though this white trend line will hold up because the measured move from this pattern is not sufficient to break through here anyway. It would maybe get you back up to here. So my anticipation is that if we kind of zoom back out and take a closer or a little different look at this, I don't know if this is already the daily high. I mean, it could still come up to here, like I said, and it may very well just pop up there while we're talking, right? And it may very well even come back into this pattern, and then maybe it gets stopped out here. Tough to say, but potentially we've got a descending triangle kind of a look here. If it does end up being a descending triangle, you take the measurement from here to here, move that over here. It gets us really just below this midline of that larger falling channel that we talked about, which I made the adjustment on my chart the other day. This used to be just a solid yellow line. I altered it, but it gets us to probably just below it. Now the key there would be, does it just kind of wick below and then hold support? If it does, then that actually that kind of goes along the lines of what we were kind of talking about with kind of falling wedge concepts and some breakouts there, that this thing could come in, put in a lower low, put in a higher RSI value, and then burst off out of there. So possible descending triangle there. Really, it's just going to depend. I mean, if Bitcoin decides it wants to pop back up into this pattern, not necessarily on the daily, but again on the shorter time frames, for sure, then maybe all of a sudden it becomes a long, right? Maybe you might look at that concept and think, all right, well, that's a long. Now this is interesting here. This has got a little bit of a parabola going. What I tend to find is that when you get these little mini parabolas, these just three straight candles, whatever time frame, it's irrelevant. I tend to find that this little pattern will just pump, sell off, and then you almost always get this kind of coming out of it. You almost always get this real sharp kind of move back down, and it will probably move back down to this line, this area here, this 29.3. If it finds support there at that point in time, that's where we get the full measured move to come up out of here. But again, I think it still looks like it comes up to here. Now, we talked about the SPX yesterday. Obviously, well, the last few days we've been talking about it. Man, the S&P just got tanked yesterday after it looked like it was putting in a good, strong bullish move. Total bullish fake out. It's coming back down, so kind of similar to Bitcoin to an extent. It's coming back down, looking like it's going to maybe try out a double bottom kind of a situation on its own chart, which I would have thought would have coincided more with this level for Bitcoin. But again, assuming this all holds up and that the SPX doesn't just absolutely dump more today, then Bitcoin does stand a chance of actually breaking above this line. If instead what I'm seeing here is a little different scenario, and it's actually the SPX is in fact going to continue to come down on its own chart, maybe testing out 38, 3,700, 3,600 even. If that's going to be the case, then this line probably holds up and Bitcoin will roll on right over with the SPX. And at which point, again, this looks an awful lot like a descending triangle or rounded top. So we've got a chance to actually put in some pretty good downside. But, again, I said I'd keep this one brief today, and I certainly will. I'm just going to do one other thing while we're sitting here, and just because I think that, and here we go. And, granted, I was looking at the 5-minute chart there. Bitcoin's running out of steam, at least on this 5-minute chart, so... but it does appear that at least for the time being, it held this neckline here from this inverted head and shoulders. So now, again, I'd say there's a strong chance this thing can pop up here. I think it's going to lose this line for now, though. I doubt highly that it will stay up there right this moment. It will probably come back down into this region here, maybe here, if it is going to, again, pop back up to the upside. So, but that's not what I wanted to show you guys. It was... couple different things. So the USDT dominance, US dollar tether, this is the percentage of US dollar tether that makes up the entire crypto space, which right now, not right now, but it recently maxed at 7.25%, highest of all time. It's never been that high before. I think, I don't know, there seems to be a lot of confusion out there, as far as, and here let's talk UST just for a second. It was an algorithmic stablecoin, so that presented its own challenge, regardless. Okay, so don't think of UST and USDT as the same, because they're not. They're totally different products. They just marketed the same way, right? But the algorithmic stablecoin. So think of it this way. You're using Luna to help prop up the UST or vice versa. Then you're putting all these, you're giving people interest to hold the money or to hold the hold the Luna. Anyway, long story short, it's just that was unsustainable once the systemic pullback started to happen. Right, once Bitcoin started to lose that 40, I don't even remember what it was. 48,000, whatever it was a few weeks back. Whenever it started to lose that and it started to plummet and everything else comes dragging with it, all of a sudden you've got a situation where you got to run on the bank, right? Now all of a sudden this, Luna token that everyone was holding in order to prop up the UST and keep that stable, well, all of a sudden if people start selling off their Luna, everybody's selling off Bitcoin, all of a sudden it exposed the systemic risk of that particular product. And there's more to it than that, but again, if Bitcoin would have been working its way to 100,000, right now, as opposed to moving from 48 to 30, do we think that this same thing would have happened? I doubt highly that it would have, right? So, again, there's more at play than just that, but what I want to relate that back to is USDT. Look, the market shows signs of weakness. What do? You go into the safest, most stable asset that you can find. Boom, right here, right? It's fairly obvious what happened here, right? Now, That being stated, it's no different. Like, again, in real life, let's pretend it's the dollar. You know, there was a point in time where people were making a run on the bank to try and get all their dollars out of the bank because crash was happening and this and that. Same idea here, people. Same idea. What? It's no different just because it's USDT. It's still a stable coin. It's still what people are going to run to in moments of uncertainty. And then it taxes the entire system, right? And then the worst part about this is that it's not like this stuff's FDIC insured. So, you know, people are like, oh man, I gotta make a run for the hills. And again, it just taxes the entire system. It puts an undue burden on the entirety of the system. So it's no surprise to me that USDT temporarily lost its peg with the dollar because, again, everybody's making a run for USDT. The demand is very high. The supply, I don't know. Well, I won't get into supply and demand of USDT because it's a little bit, I don't know, borderline shaky to begin with. But they pay a decent interest rate, etc. Anyway, long story short, look, it makes sense at the end of the day. People were running to the safest asset they could find. This was it. Now, that all being stated, one of two things I see playing out here from this point. This RSI would tell me that this thing's ready to come off the rails, right? Like this thing is ready to just plummet, which is good news for Bitcoin and the altcoin market, right? That means that if people are steadily, you know, looking this over and saying, wait a minute, all right, yeah, I don't need to be sitting in USDT anymore. I don't have to do that. This market looks like it's ready to recover. Great. Then you're going to watch this thing fall to here. And then it's going to fall through here. And then it's going to fall through here. And then fall through here. I mean, this, you know, and then the alternative, and I won't say to even say this. So you got this right here. I've got it set up right now where this is either going to be a falling channel or it is currently a bull pennant. So the RSI is what tells me that it's probably not a bull pennant, but it doesn't mean it's not. It just means that I believe it's not based on some other factors I'm seeing here. But yeah, I mean, this thing, if this thing starts to move down, guess what? That means people are buying everything else other than sitting in USDT. At that point, the run on the bank ends, and all of a sudden we can resume some fun. Otherwise, this thing pops up out of here, measured move out of this. If we do the full, if it goes to a full extension, which would be based on the pole length, which, so you got here to there basically. I mean, USDT maybe goes popping up to 8.5%, you know, somewhere in there. And then if we just think of it, all right, well, maybe it just, you know, it only goes to this extent. Even then, we're still talking 7.5%. So I mean, it's, you know, one of two things going to happen here, and I'd like to think that at this point I can say fairly safely that I expect that this thing is going to come pushing down. You got a MACD negative cross about to happen. Histogram has been losing steam for a bit now. Stochastic RSI is a hard sell. The thing is, it just doesn't, you know, and that's the same concept with Bitcoin. And yeah, you can see here we're temporarily losing that support there anyway. You know, here's the thing, and this is why when I look at the Bitcoin daily chart, it's fairly entertaining. Is that same concept is playing out just the other way around, right? Like to an extent. You got a stochastic RSI that says, nope, this is buy. It has been since right. Come on, it has been since right here. All right, we're telling you to buy that right here, and here this again is telling me to buy it. MACD looks like it could cross positive. So this in reality it is to a large extent an inverse of the Bitcoin chart, right? Like at least to an extent it has an inverse relationship, right? It's not directly correlated, it's inversely correlated. So anyway, all right, I'm not going to continue on for too long here today, but again, I just wanted to show you just a few additional things that we don't always talk about on the regular. The other thing was that I wanted to just go ahead and bring in, and I'll just do this real quick. I'm not worried about the Bitcoin dominance today just because I already know it's potentially breaking out of a long time downtrend. I'm not going to get too caught up on that there, but the DeFi perp, which is here, this is the thing. DeFi perp held this line for so long. And this is a bucket of all the DeFi coins, blah, 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 or like 25 DeFi coins, something like that. This is a bucket of them put together. This was the original parabolic run-up. This was all the way back December 20. I remember when DeFi started cranking, and I just assumed all those DeFi coins would just go on into perpetuity. So I remember, like, I don't know, a bunch of DeFi coins way back in here, just dirt cheap, and then all of a sudden they're way up here, and then they haven't done anything since, right? Like, some of them have done nothing. Sushi's gotten just destroyed. Anyway, the only relevant part about this that I wanted to point out is that you had this initial rounded bottom, breakout, back test. This level has not been back tested ever since. And guess where we are right now? Right there. And guess what this thing looks like it wants to do is double bottom. We get a double bottom. All of a sudden, DeFi is running at least back up to here because that's the level that we lost. And then if things get real exciting, boom, take off time. So, I mean, I'm getting to a point where I think that Bitcoin, DeFi, I mean, as long as, again, we hold these levels, this thing's getting ready to rock and roll. Also, let's just get out of here. Let's go over to the total 2. Total 2 is a little different, and this chart's not maybe perfect, but let's say that, say that my lines are slightly off and it's this line that needs to be held. Well, same concept. We get a double bottom right there, and this thing's ready to lift back off. But I feel pretty decent about where that 1.618 Fibonacci is, simply because, look at that, it's part of what stuffed us right here. But yeah, I mean, everything looks like it's ready for a possible double bottom. If we get one move lower, great. That just means we're going to get a better bullish divergence out of there. Again, everything we've been talking about, the weeklies to the point where it's super it's not oversold yet, but it's getting to the point where things don't go that far down on the weekly very often. So again, we're in a position where maybe it's not a V recovery out of here, but I mean, everything is pointing to the idea that we've got some recovery that will begin at some point, and it's just a matter of how soon. Again, we've talked about the 200 simple on the weekly chart, that the likelihood is at some point we come down and touch it. I don't know if it's quite ready yet. We didn't even here we lost this entire range right here, right? Like, think about it this way, like we lost this entire range here. Bitcoin just fell right through it entirely. Why would it not make sense to recover back up to here and then put in a bearish retest here at least, right? I mean, would that not make the most sense as far as that part goes? I would think so, right? Like, I would love to believe that it's not just going to just absolutely dump through here and lose 2 full support levels before it has any chance of recovery. I don't know, but hey, this is what I got for you today, gentlemen. We're looking for a recovery here and a sustained one. S&P looks like it's getting ready to double bottom, hopefully. If it holds that level, I'm going to assume Bitcoin will as well. And then at that point, I'm going to be assuming that, in fact, and now all of a sudden, Bitcoin is in fact back above this level and holding it. So yeah, I'm going to be preparing very soon that we're going to be in long positions, and hope that in fact we are seeing things the right way here. But my goodness. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content. Let me get back to work here, see if I can find us some money makers. Let's get some big gains out there. My goodness. All right, and again, we're looking for a bearish retest potentially too. So 29,770 potentially downside from there. But man, so much to look forward to. I look forward to catching up with you guys again, telling you more about Bitcoin and breaking it down.